So welcome, we're here, Ward Wrestling Live. Once again, I've got two amazing, one's an amazing wrestler, one's an amazing wrestling mind, and we've got them here today. I had the honor of meeting Miss Carolyn Wester of Wrestling Prep. She's an American kickboxing coach. She's cornered and trained many UFC fighters. She has several national champs, Super 32 champs, high school champs, and her coaching style is really, really amazing. I got a chance to go on to the site and kind of read about what she does, and her mind is amazing. And then we have one of her young students here who is Andrew Morgan. He's a SoCon champ. He's a 3-time California state placer, which is very difficult to do. He's a COVID All-American, an academic All-American, and he's working his way up. He's training for the US Open right now, and he's wrestling for the great Scotty Sentis over there at Campbell. But welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure I could have given you guys more accolades, but at some point we got to set. It's an honor to have you on. I did a little bit of research. You know, I had to do something just to kind of get to know you guys a little bit, especially Carolyn. I saw some cool videos. I know you sent me some, and then when I type in your name, you can see you yelling in like the UFC corner at the cage and screaming at the wrestler to do what you want them to do. And then of course you sent me that great video of Andrew getting ready for the US Open. But you know, thanks guys. I do appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having this show and giving an opportunity for people to discuss wrestling, because it is truly the most incredible sport available for any person of any gender and of any body type, because there's no genetic disposition for wrestling. And the fact that you can move 17 times in 10 seconds, so 600 plus movements in a match, allows for young people to realize that it can never be perfect. And you can't be anybody else, and you can't stall. And we need more people doing shows like yours that let people talk about it, not just celebrate all the great victories that people have, which should be celebrated, but to help people understand why they should put the time, money, effort, and blood, sweat, and tears into wrestling.
And it was really fun, you know, before we get into, you know, Andrew's story and stuff and start doing that. I met you at the GFC this week, and we were waiting in the line the first day. I think it was kind of a little messy. They were kind of getting themselves together, but we got in line there, and it was pretty cool. We just started shooting the shit and talking and having fun. And we shared numbers, and here we are. But you had, I mean, you brought 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with you from Wrestling Prep. You brought a girl with you that not only did she place in the girls 19U, she placed in the boys 13U as well. So that's major. That's awesome. You had a couple placers there, 1 3rd, 1 8th, but you had Vafiatis, right? Who placed in the elite.
Yeah, he's a member of Virginia Predator, but I am his ancillary coach. And as his father said, this introduced me to people. This is one of Nick's coaches, but he trains with us on the regular. Drew and I have worked with him for a while. And
yeah, and you had a couple other guys.
Yeah, Dylan Cohn from Florida, even though he hasn't been to camp the last 2 years, I think he spent 4 or 5 summers with us. His older brother, anybody from Gilroy, you know, the chances, Jane Gomez, I've got all the blackmail pictures of him as a child, and and all those kids, you know, all of them I've worked with or known a very long time, because Wrestling Prep has always been inclusive. We would allow anybody from, it's why it's called nonpartisan, with nonpartisan wrestling, because you don't have to be a part of a certain program. You don't have to be part of a certain anything to participate. And we are very low cost and endeavor to do things at low cost or no cost whenever we can, and allow everyone.
To be honest, what a great kid. I had him on my show.
I saw it. It's great.
He was in a grind of a bracket. That 152, I would think that 152 and 125 was probably the deepest in elite. Would you say so?
Well, I thought Nick's bracket was extremely hard. And, you know, I was concerned that we were going to be banging it up. I thought maybe Henry Porter from Gilroy would end up going 152, but it would be hard. But I think what's really the hardest at this point is that a lot of the rankings are skewed based on people's performances in 2019. And then on top of it, there's been no Fargo, nothing to separate people out. So I think kids are feeling pressure to perform a certain way in order to affect their recruiting, since there's so limited tournaments. and it makes it more of a grind, that there's more pressure. We don't know when the next real tournament's going to be, or, you know, is it really going to occur or not occur? So that made me really, really struggle. I thought the 170 bracket that Enzo Merlacci was in, who I cornered, was also very hard. And I was
Yeah, we
super,
had a kid, Ty Lukens, in that bracket that we got to see him and Bartel wrestle twice, which would probably be a preview of our 2A championship, I think 2A. But, you know, it's the best wrestling that I've ever watched live. So it's the biggest tournament that I've ever been to. I mean, I've been to our state tournament, but this was the country showing up, and it was pretty cool to see through COVID that our country stepped up and said, hey, we're coming and we're bringing it. And I mean, there were brackets 50, 60 deep, and it was fun. Were you there, Andrew?
No, I wasn't. I was pretty much stuck in our Campbell bubble, you know, training and everything. So I was just kind of focused on the U.S. Open coming up.
Oh, good
what
for
I think
you.
is imperative about the grappler is that in preseason, many kids train and they finish up their high school season, they do some folk style and freestyle, and then they endeavor to get better in the summer, but there's no way to ascertain if what they've learned has become ingrained. So having these preseason tournaments, which normally for us is a lot of kids go to the grappler, we go to Journeyman Classic, Super 32, and sometimes there used to be a tournament that Intermat had called the JJ Classic. I think it's called the Intermat Classic, that we used to go to in Minnesota. But we want to make sure by the end of the preseason, all the kids have ascertained what's working for them and how it's going to be competitive and what we're going to do about their recruiting. So what are the things we want to try to control during the high school season that's going to lay them in a better light so they can endeavor to go to a good school. Drew was very successful at Super 32. He was an NHSCA All-American. He was a Flow National All-American. And we did both preseason and postseason, which greatly helped his recruiting because he always, was it Anthony or Zaid you used to hit? Anthony.
Both, actually, in California.
Yeah.
I was 70 and 82, so I wrestled them both my senior year.
Right. So for me, I think the hardest preseason tournament is always Super 32 in a non-COVID year. But, you know, who knows this year? The grappler may turn out to be the hardest tournament of all. And then Journeyman's supposed to go off in 2 weekends. So that's a whole different situation because it's a round robin tournament and you have to be a state champ to be in the main event, or there's a lot of criteria. So it's like Fight Club. You get there on a Sunday afternoon and you bang it out, 5-6 matches, and it's tough and quick. And then you're really ready for Super 32. And then that's when recruiting begins. Dylan Cohn said to me, I asked him if he knew where he was going to school yet. And he said, I want to see how I do at Super 32. Because
at the beginning of this process, I had Coach Duck on, and then he sent me Brett Lee Reyna, and which is his son. And Brett Lee was already being recruited pretty well, right? But when he went to 32 and made that run last year and won it, he said that it was the world opened up for him, you know. And now he's going to Iowa, and the rest is history. But he did. He said I was already being recruited well, but when I made that run, it really changed everything.
Yes,
so,
I was right there I was right there at the mat when he won that match.
Pretty cool. So
I may have been the other kid.
I may have been coaching the other kid. Well, yeah, it's pretty cool. It was fun to watch you coach, Coach Wester, because I was sitting there one match watching you and listening to you, and where, you know, a lot of coaches are screaming or yelling or dramatic or whatever they're doing. It was fun to listen to you because, and Andrew, you could probably
Definitely
understand this, because she wasn't, it was different. It was like, no. I forget who it was, but we'll just call him Johnny. It was like, Johnny, your elbow. Okay, put the elbow underneath there. Okay, move this. Like, it was so calming. Okay, your head to the shoulder. Like, there was no like, your head, wrestle. Go, circle. Like, nothing. It was just like, it was so calculated and understood, and it was pretty cool. So, I mean, obviously that's what you're known for from me reading. So that's pretty cool. But Andrew, you've been coached by her, I imagine, most of your life, right?
yeah, since Ooh, man, summer of like 2013 is I think the first time I went to wrestling prep. Just went for a week. We honestly had no idea what it was. One of my high school coaches, who some of my he was the dad of some of my teammates on the team, just found it on the internet. Was like, hey, there's this camp up in Northern California. You want to go? And of course, me, it was like, yeah, let's go. And that's what started it all with Carolyn. Obviously, I was kind of enthralled right away, like you said. The way she coaches in the corners, the way she coaches practices, it's very, body leveraging. It's putting your body in the right position at all times. And I just love it because it applies to anyone. Like you said, anyone, any body type can be successful in wrestling. And she kind of really makes your wrestling based on your body style. I think a lot of coaches throw out just cookie cutter stuff, especially in high school, just, which they're not paid a lot. They're high school coaches, and you're not traveling to Super 32, the biggest tournaments in the country. So, and they're coaching, 60, 70 kids at sometimes in a high school. So you kind of have to just mold it to, a little cookie cutter. But the way she approaches the sport is so much different. And so for me, I was instantly, enthralled with the process. I only went to wrestling prep for a week that summer, but I did all the body leveraging on my own. I went 6 a.m. workouts before school and did it. And I just saw the jump that it helped me make. As that year was the first year I actually, placed in state in California, which pretty big deal for California, the one class. So I saw the correlation to the way she coached and everything, and I was in from there. And then I think the next summer I spent 4 or 5 weeks out at wrestling prep, and the rest is history.
It was really refreshing because we were on, Matt, I think it was so you had 2 and 3 in the middle, and then you had 1 and 4 on the edges. And I forget what edge it was that you were on. And I was sitting there in a chair trying to get pictures and whatever. And it was refreshing because it's like your elbow, it was like arm to elbow, okay, neck, okay, push, legs, head in, there you go, okay, you got it. And it was a pin, right? And it was over, right? But it wasn't
throw it on
like,
the mat. I'm sure it was a head spread, throw it on the mat. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I remember the first year I went to Super 32 with Israel Saavedra, and Israel was maybe an 8th grader. Israel Saavedra, Coach Ward, is a 2-time California State champ, NHSCA champ, Flow All-American. Was a really great wrestler. And I was wrestling somebody from Christiansburg, Virginia, he was. And Israel ended up beating him. And the kid's famous who he beat. And Dad came over and said, I have no idea what you were saying, but that little boy sure knew.
yeah,
So
it
people
was,
say that to me all the time. They don't understand what I'm saying unless you're with me all the time. Sorry.
yeah, I've I went to the Grappler last year, and there was a lot of similar coaches, but the talent wasn't as vast as this year, right? And then, I've seen the state, but to get to experience that room and get to see, you coach, Jeff Reagan coach, Terry Styles, I got to see him coach, right? Izzy's people were there. And then of course the Florida guys, Balmaceda and Duck, and then you saw Palazzo and Scott, and it was just amazing. I love, you're looking at a mat and you've got Nick Simmons coaching against Mike Palazzo or something, and you're like,
Sean Garrett. Sean
Yeah.
was there coaching for Kingsman. You had Nick Piccinini, coach from Oklahoma State, coaching for Gilroy. Henry Porter. Coach Porter, Henry Porter's dad, is a real famous coach. You had Bill Newton from Gilroy.
So Sean Garrett was there.
Yeah, no, Sean Garrett was there. Yeah,
See, my son said, my son, after his second match, he went outside. He was upset and he was crying. He went outside to do what kids do when they lose, right? Just sit on the curb and just totally mind screw yourself. But that's what kids do. And he goes, yesterday I was taking him home from practice. He goes, Dad, darn it. I go, what? He goes, I swear I saw Sean Garrett. I swear I walked right by him. And I go, okay. He goes, I know it was him, Dad. I watch him all the time, but I was so upset at myself. I didn't stop to say hi. And I was like, but that's cool. But I had, I would not know anyone from anyone. I know who I had, even people I've had on my show. Like I had the young man that won 152 that beat RJ West and Camden Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
I had him on my show, but he didn't have a shaved head. So do you know, I was sitting there one time talking to him and Nick Bousakis. At the same time, he had just upset Vafiatis, because Vafiatis, I think, was picked to
Correct.
meet RJ Weston at the end, and he just beat him. And I was like, hey, wow, nice job. You know, Vafiatis a tough kid, great bracket, congratulations, whatever, right? And then I walked away. Well, I gave Nick a pin because he had pinned somebody. So you know those little pins I gave out. So I
Right,
gave
those
him
are
a
very
pin.
nice.
Yeah, and I realized it was him when I got home, and I messaged him. I'm like, hey man, do you realize we were talking? I didn't even recognize you, and he started laughing and stuff. So um, it was fun. A lot of great matches. Um, and you know, I definitely want to get into your story, Andrew, so we can kind of blow up the NCAA. But really quick, I'd love to learn a little bit about your coaching style, Carolyn, because I've read some great things. I got to witness you coach today, this weekend for the first time, and just the calming, as I've said, was awesome. So I watched some videos when I came home, and it was really cool that you would be standing on the mat and you'd like grab the leg, okay, pick it up, okay, move here. You know, it was very nonchalant. Yeah, so I read a little more, and it talks about how you've created some sort of taking mathematics and putting it into your style of coaching, and discuss the big thing comes to body leveraging. And I mean, talk a little bit about that, and how this has just been very successful for you. Because I read where you made the move to California, what, like 13 years ago or something?
I went to California. My former husband and I were both in venture capital. We went there when our children were young in elementary school. And I'd never had anything to do with wrestling in any way, shape, or form. And our youngest wanted to wrestle. So I started taking him over to the club program at Stanford. And that's really where it started happening. And I guess I would just say, you know, I would watch the coaches coach, and then I would think to myself, mathematically, that's not the most proficient way to do that. And so I sort of fell for these kids that were in high school at the time. And there were kids like Nico Trigas, who ended up going to Ohio State, NCAA All-American, Jason Welch, 3-time California state champ, 4-time state placer, NCAA finalist, 3-time NCAA All-American, and now head coach San Francisco State. There was a whole bunch of kids who started out and they all wanted to do well, and their parents would be frustrated with them because the coach would ask them to do something one way and they wouldn't do it. And I would watch the athlete do it. He happened to be a man who was at the Olympic Training Center, and he would come over and coach. He ran the club program there for a while. And I would say, hey, you know, when his trajectory is going forward and the goal is to knock the large object on its back, these are the muscles he's using in this order. And the kids would just be like throwing themselves, you know, sort of ineffectively, not using their body in a way. And I remember one time, one dad in particular, we had taken Jason Welch to the Menlo Open College tournament as a sophomore or junior, and he was in the finals. And I had said to him, hey, the coach says, don't do it this way, do it this way. And so he didn't, but he was sitting on his leg on the bleachers. I said, Jason, why didn't you do it the way coach said? He goes, oh, I did, Carolyn. And I went, oh, he doesn't know the difference. And then, you know, most dads are like, they don't want it, they're lazy. It's, keep in mind, I knew nothing about wrestling, nothing about the wrestling community. And I thought, that kid's out there wearing a white leotard, basically, with every part of their body visible to anyone in the room. There's no way a 9th grader would be doing that unless they really wanted to do this sport. So over time, that athlete left the Stanford club program. I was helping the kids go to college. He would say, Carolyn, these kids, because Palo Alto is very affluent, but immediately outside, it's not. A lot of migrant kids, migrant workers, children, you know, California has the 42nd worst public school system in the country. And these kids really wanted to go to college. And the coach said, hey, I'll call the coaches. You help them do their testing and their essays. So I did all of that with them. And then I just started coaching because there was no one to do it, because these high school coaches, they're not getting any extra money. They have their own families. They have to deal with the school system. And I just started helping. And I was like, if I was still doing, you know, math-based work I had stopped working in venture capital. I had stopped working, and I'd say I'd be fired. So then I thought, how can I teach these kids to make these movements correctly? So over time, I would watch, and I ascertained about 95% of all of technique is correlated to about 14 or 15 sequential movements, which is now that term sequential movement is a big thing in MMA and wrestling, but it's not what I do. Mine's math based. I'm looking for the math and the angle, not the likeness to movement of animals or all the other stuff. Rob Cole was explaining it to me a little bit when I was up in Ithaca a while back, and he and I had breakfast one day and piddled around on a wrestling mat back when you could. And he's like, yeah, that's not the same thing. I'm like, no. So really for me, the philosophy has been, I want kids to get better, and explaining things in math, because math is always correct. And then teaching them how to do those movements, and then teaching technique by connecting those dots, not just, I mean, really keep in mind, Coach Ward, there's over 600 seconds, there's a lot of time in a match. There's no way to do it perfect, even though a lot of coaches have it in their head, this is the most perfect way to do it. It might not be, because it's mathematically improbable. So if you can teach a kid how to do what they already know to do better, and give them hope that all those years of practice is paying off now, and then add on what works logically, then it's better. And then over time, I stopped fiddling with every piece of technique I ever saw. And we sort of had our own consumer reports. John Andretti, Shane Triantos, Drew Morgan, Mark Klimko, I'm trying to think who else, Israel Saavedra, Emilio Saavedra, a lot of really good kids. We all got together, and we would take all the technique we'd seen that year and to bang it up against somebody who was in the best mathematical body position. And if it didn't work on them, we didn't teach it or drill it.
Andrew, I got a question. So you show up to this camp and you're here to wrestle, right? And this lady comes out and she's like, okay, 1 + 1 is 2, 3 + 3 is 6. Here's the angle. Are you like, what the hell am I doing here at first?
It definitely throws you off at first, in the sense of, we show up just for a wrestling camp. You don't, never been anything like this. I've only been wrestling for, 3 or 4 years at the time. So like, I didn't know that much. And you go to this mat, or you go in the first day, camps would always start on a Sunday and on a Friday over the summer, and Sunday is match day. So it's just kids that aren't even doing the camp for the week are coming. There's like 300, 400. I've been in one that are like 500 kids just doing running around this in the circle, and then breaking off into 5, 6 groups, and you're just doing matches. You just pick kind of by weight, and then you just pick a kid and wrestle, and then the 4 other groups go, and then you go. And so like, I'm just like, oh, okay, we're just wrestling, whatever, getting ready. See, kids are running. Then all of a sudden they start doing this body leveraging thing for the warm up, because the rule is, if you come to match day, you have to do the body leveraging. No one's too good, And so I'm just like, and of course, it's the first day, so she's not really explaining it. She's kind of just running through. So everyone's just, kids that, have never been there, just throwing themselves to do it. So I'm just falling on my head, seeing little 6-year-olds, running the floor, doing it perfectly. I'm just like, what is going on here? But as the camp progressed, to me, is the way she would explain things is literally, it's like an engineering problem. Like she said, it was like, this is the best, like most efficient way to do it. The strongest way, 90 degrees is the strongest structure. So I apply that with, 90 degrees between my legs, between my arms. I'm going to pull this way to use this muscle, and then for me, just being a more analytical person as I am, it just made sense to me, in the sense of like, oh, well, why would I waste my time using so much energy when I could just be doing it this right way, in the correct body position to be the most effective. So I just looked at it as being the most effective. So for me, I was kind of drawn to it right away. That first week, I was kind of all in. So even though I was only there for a week, I kept practicing through, like I said, that whole year, saw great results, and then I was sold, and been going pretty much every summer ever since.
Yeah, it's obviously worked. I mean, you're at a very, very, very top academic school. You're in the SoCon. You're at Campbell. You're wrestling Division I. You're training for the U.S. Open. You've placed in probably the toughest tournament in the country, maybe New Jersey. maybe Indiana, I've heard. Those three are all one state championship. But I mean, so obviously she's meant the world to you.
No, definitely. I mean, she's done so much for me, more than just, training. She's the one that helped me get recruited, kind of like what you guys were talking about, the whole preseason training that she does in regiment. That's what I jumped in my senior year. I placed my junior year, kind of going the wrestling prep way, trained all summer. And then she was like, hey, we do all the tournaments, we do Super 32, we do California had this, we used to have a good preseason tournament called the Shootout, I think, or the World Challenge. That's what it was. The World Challenge.
California World Challenge.
Yeah. So all the good California kids would go there, and it was like 2-3 weeks before Super 32. So I was like, perfect, go there, do all this. And, that's kind of where I took off. And even though I didn't place at Super 32 my senior year, I felt like I wrestled the best I ever did. I did the whole Carolyn way. I did my diet right. I did my weight cut right. I traveled with her, which is very regimented in the sense of we're getting there at this time, we're weighing in at this time, we're eating at this time, and we're going to sleep. Like it's a business trip. And so for me, I was sold. I didn't place. Obviously in the moment I was bummed.
But he finished right out of placing.
Yeah, I think a match away, 2 matches away, lost to like the 3rd and 6th by a few points. So I knew I was wrestling well. And then that's when I started getting recruited. I started talking to Cal Poly, some other schools. And that's where I, spoke with Coach Sentes, Coach Brendan Buckley, because initially I went to Cal Poly my freshman year. That's where I committed. So pretty much right after that, that's where they noticed me, where I did well. And I ended up committing, I think, a month, 2 later.
That's awesome. What was like, yeah, Palazzo says the same thing when these kids are getting ready to go to a tournament. Like, this is not a vacation, this is a business trip. This is where we're going, this is what we're doing. Real quick, another California kid we watched this weekend, and he just made it look easy. Joey Cruz.
Oh,
how good is that kid?
Joey Cruz is incredible. I have the cutest pictures of him. He has to be 2012 or 2013. He and the oldest Luna boy, Ryan, are over in the facility, our facility in San Jose. Bryce Luna placed this weekend at 112 in the elite division from California. But they're over, and Joey's always been incredible. He's a hard worker. He knows how to manage his weight, and he's just an incredible kid.
Yeah, 2 guys that I saw this weekend that looked different level than the rest of the kids was Joey at that weight, and Busakis at his weight. Those two just they were on different universe, different planet than the rest. Crook kept it close. They're very, very, very close, those two. So I don't know, they know each other really well, but I think those 2 kids, the California kid, Joey, and then seminary kid, Nick, those 2 just looked different. Do they typically, you travel the country at all these tournaments, do those 2 kids typically look different in these rooms?
Well, I think that depends on the tournament. There's no doubt that Nick and Joey are exceptional, but there are other kids that are just as exceptional. Maybe only 2 or 3% of the high school kids, but that's what's the beauty of the preseason is, you go to all these different places, then Super 32 is where everyone goes. Like people, I have kids from Colorado. We had some kids here training from Colorado who are both top 3 placers in Colorado. They come all the time. Cody Thompson, Dylan Roman, and they're like, hey, do you want to go to Journeyman? You want to go to the Grappler? No, I want to go to Super 32. And Wrestling Prep was the first group out of California to really go to Super 32 and the first to go to Journeyman. And you can see the impact of Wrestling Prep over the years, because I wasn't comfortable with kids only going to California tournaments, because I felt like in many ways, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be malicious, but it sounds malicious. I felt that California kids were often controlled by the California colleges, because they would tell them, we're not going to recruit you until March of your senior year. And I said, that's crazy. There's so many D1 programs. There's so many academic schools, not that Cal Poly or Stanford or Bakersfield, or at the time we still had Fullerton, and some of the programs that we don't have anymore. Fresno wasn't active then, but now we have Fresno. We didn't have Cal Pap, but or now we have Sonoma also in California, Menlo, but in San Francisco State. But that was crazy. I'm like, these kids should be going other places. And there was a kid named Jeff Doss. John Welch was really fond of him too. Went to Los Gatos, got third in California his senior year. But before, I called up the coach at Cal Poly and I said, hey, we'd like you to recruit him now. And he said, no, we don't do it till later. And John Welch called up the coach at the time and said, this person you barely know, she's going to have him sign somewhere else because she's not going to wait for him to get injured or to have a bad state tournament when he's already done so well at Super 32 and others. She's going to get him recruited. And that was the first time Cal Poly made a financial offer to someone prior to the California state tournament.
Oh, that's awesome. And not just that, but I mean, the JUCO wrestling in California is insane too.
Yeah,
I
really
mean,
good.
you can go through, I mean, your buddy Cormier, right? I mean, look what he did.
He went to JUCO in Louisiana, but it's the same thing. I mean, that was Daniel's opportunity. And then he made the most of it and had the opportunity to wrestle for John Smith at Oklahoma State. But that whole JUCO system makes all the difference. But what I think I want to say about the recruiting and preseason and trips being a business trip, so much of wrestling is about these relationships people have with their parents and their friends. So when they get to the tournament, they want to recapture that. But at the end, sometimes people who get caught up in the emotion of a tournament, and I feel sure Coach Plaza would say this because he's a no-nonsense guy. When it's all over and they're wondering why they're only getting 20% scholarship and there's not people interested in them, it's the difference between placing an even number at the lower half than finishing in an odd number in the top half. And a lot of that has to do with sleep, preparation, rehydration, everything planned out, clean clothes, peace of mind, no confusion about when you're getting there. When parents say to me, oh, I'm sorry, my kid wasn't on time to warm up. We were stuck in traffic. I'm like, what traffic? Oh, the traffic to get in the facility. There was no traffic 45 minutes ago. And now here's your kid. We said shoes on 6:50 a.m. Now it's 7:45. Your kid's not warmed up. What do you want me to do about it? There's 200,000 kids on this mat now. At 7:01, there was wrestling prep and St. John Bosco, me and Ruben Valencia. That's you can set your clock to me and Ruben Valencia being the first people on the mat at any tournament.
Yeah, my son gets upset with me sometimes because, so I was in sales for 20 years, and I was a sales manager. And so being on time was a pet peeve, right? So I would, but I think I'm just ridiculous. So they didn't open the gym till 8 this past weekend. Daniel would be through the door at 7 a.m. and he'd be sitting on the couch waiting for Palazzo to come down at 7:30. And he's like, why do you keep getting me here so early? I'm like, because you're here. There's no excuse. We're not late. You're on time. You're here for everything. And maybe he appreciates it. Maybe he doesn't, but hopefully when he gets older, he'll look back and understand.
Well, you will appreciate it. And I think this weekend at the Grappler, the first day we were talking to you, Pearson Manville, the youngest of the Manville brothers, Mason Carson Pearson. And I don't know if you're familiar with him. Mason is a redshirt sophomore at Penn State and he's a two-time world champ. Very, very good. Carson is won Fargo every time he stepped on the mat, except for his injury year, he didn't go. Pearson, he came right up, sat right down and put on his shoes while the other kids were sitting there looking at their phone and whatever, waiting for somebody to tell them what to do. And then when we got out there and they were all putting on their shoes, Pearson's running and he's giving them the evil eye. He's like, you're wasting. I hardly get to be with Carolyn. She doesn't live near me anymore. She has to drive to me or fly to me. You're wasting my time with Carolyn. Get on this mat. And he's in 9th grade. But that's why Pearson will go to college on a full academic or an RTC, and he will do well because he's willing to do that. Get him off the mat. When it's all done, he's the goofiest kid on the planet.
Yeah, and it's great to see, like I tell you, just in my few minutes in wrestling, the big clubs that I've gotten a chance to go to and watch wrestle, um, at least in locally here, you see that there are kids in the room that make sure the other kid, like the coach doesn't have to do it. There's kids that understand they need to be doing it and they handle it, but it's pretty awesome. So Andrew, what's up? I mean, I'm sure I could talk to Carolyn about math and all this stuff because math was the only subject I passed in school. All the others I failed. So I do like math, but and it's making me like want to pack my kid a bag and send him to wherever you are right now. But
We take them.
Yeah, do it. That's
Oh.
the way. I mean, that's how I got into it. You gotta jump in. I mean, she's the one that kind of took me to that next level.
You'd be stunned, the kids that really come through that we don't talk about or say anything because they have over possessive club coaches or high school coaches. But I will say two of the most times I've ever been most flattered was someone told me that Steve Tirapelli said of Clovis High School, told his kids, I don't really want you to train anywhere else, but if you are, I want you to go to Carolyn Wester. And then I have another family who's at SEM, and Scott Green said, I don't really like other people around, other coaches around my kids at all, but Carolyn Wester is not one of them. You can train with her what you want. And I think that's why Cormier came and sought me out. You know, he came over to where I was, called me on the phone. I didn't know who he was and said, don't tell him that though. He came over and he said, I'm Daniel Cormier. Can I bring kids and come watch you coach? I said, yes, sir. And he came over and then he said to me and a guy, John Hall, he said, we want you to come to AKA. And that was 2011. And then Javier Mendez, I sat around and watched for about a year, a little less. And then I started helping, just saying, hey, are you trying to do what Daniel's doing? Because he's actually doing it like this. And then they said, you need to be in the corner because you're so calm.
it's funny. I tell people I got a phone call from Barry Davis on my Facebook, on my Facebook phone thing, right? And because when I first started out, I didn't know anybody but the little group like at CFWA or TFA or the kids that my son had been around. So I was literally going on to Facebook Messenger and I would type in like wrestling and I would just private message people. So I must have done that thousands of times. If it looked like you were like at wrestling and not WWE, I sent you a message, right? So apparently he must have been one that got a message. So my phone rings and it's like, hey, this is Barry Davis. And I'm like, okay, who are you? He's like, you want me on your show? And I'm like, I don't know who you are. Are you a coach? What do you do? He's like, all right, never mind. And he hangs up. And I'm like, oh shit. So whatever. So I reach out to Mr. Henenbaugh. And because Bud has been helping me through this, you know, he became a fan and whatever. And I'm like, hey, sir, I think well, first of all, I look up Barry Davis and I find out he's like you know, on the Mount Rushmore of American wrestling. And I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. I'm like, well, I'm a dummy. And so then anyway, we reconnected and everything went well. And I had him on the show and it was awesome. So he sends me a referral to Gary Abbott. And I say, okay, thank you very much. And he puts in big capital letters, make sure you do your research first. And I was like, okay, shot fired. I'm like, touche, coach, I got it. that was one of my funny moments amongst many that I've had when I'm talking to somebody who's legendary and I have no clue, absolute clue, right?
Well, that was me. I didn't know. And even today, people will talk to me. They'll see me at a UFC event or doing an interview for the UFC or something, or cornering at a fight. And then they'll ask me, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, no, I have no clue. They're like, you're not a fan. I'm like, not really. I just coach the men and women I coach.
Well, because of this show, and I've done like 340 or 350 since April 6th, right? So I finally got out of my house for the qualifier, 32 qualifier. There was a little D1 duel, and then I went to grappler. So now people will start talking to me, and they'll be like, yeah, I mean, so Oscar Smith, you know Oscar Smith, or I'm like, I have no idea. Okay, well, he's like top 10, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, I don't know him. Tell me who he is and I'll talk to him, right? But that's legit me, right? So it's pretty funny, but man, enough about that. Let's get into you, Drew. So first, you know, let's talk about what's going on. So you were at college, things, whatever happened, you transferred. COVID's going on, NCAA blocks it, right?
Yeah, it's been a ride. These 4 years since Cal Poly. So like I said, got recruited to Cal Poly, went there after a good senior year working with Carolyn, doing the whole preseason, postseason thing. Go to Cal Poly, had a great year, loved the time there, loved the guys, loved the area. But we didn't have any NCAA qualifiers that year. Our coach took a new job at Beat the Streets, New York, Brendan Buckley. He's now the executive director there. And then obviously Coach Evans, Mike Evans, was going back to Iowa to train with the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. And then Scotty was in limbo about whether he was staying or not. So, we're just having a full coaching staff change, which is, kind of a shock. Didn't think much of it. It was kind of like, hey, Cal Poly is my place. And then we actually had a meeting with the athletic director, Don Oberhelman, and he was like, blah, blah. And it's the week before the NCAA tournament that year, 2016. And he was like, I'm going to talk to people, get an applicant pool, blah, blah, blah. And then, last little bit, he leaves on his, also anyone who would like to transfer can transfer as long as they meet with the new coach first. And so, at the time I wasn't even thinking about transferring. So it didn't even register. I just heard it, whatever. And then a few weeks pass. Obviously there's the applicant pool, everything. And we find out Coach John Cerritas got hired, who's now the current coach at Cal Poly. And I have great relationships to this day. We're super cool. We talk at tournaments, always at Reno and things, super cool guy. But obviously once that process was going on, I found out Coach Sentes wasn't staying, Coach Scotty Sentes. And he, literally how the conversation went, he goes, hey, I'm going to Campbell. I checked out the other schools. Coach Collett reached out to me. I'm going to Campbell. Obviously I'd love for you to come, but I'd love for you to stay. Like, I just want what's best for you. That's it. Pretty much told the whole team that in team meetings and everything. So I was like, all right, well, the AD did say we were allowed to transfer. So why not at least check out the opportunity? In Campbell, the first thing you do when you Google them, their business school comes up. Like, I think at Campbell, literally Googled Campbell business. First thing that came up is their business school. And they actually have the major that I was in, trust and wealth management. It's the only one in the country undergrad program. So it's like a financial planning pretty much. And they also have this 4+1 master's program. So in 5 years, you get your undergrad and your master's at the same time. And, with wrestling with red shirt and the 4 years of eligibility, you're in school for 5 years. So I was like, all right, well, this is already, kind of caught my eye. And as Carolyn knows, my mom was Cal Poly all the way. From day one, she was pushing Cal Poly. She was like, it's a great school. Obviously, in California, D1, pushing it, even talking to Carolyn and pushing me through it. All that stuff.
But how, that's really cool though. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, his mother is persistent.
It's really cool though, and it's refreshing when I talk to athletes at your level, and they say, I chose the school not for the wrestling, but for the major. And obviously Campbell has a history of wrestling and a great history, and you can't go wrong there, but it's refreshing to hear that school is still important. But go ahead, it's cool.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's a huge thing. Obviously wrestling's going to end at some point. Can't wrestle forever. So the major was important. I think getting an education was important. And obviously this was right around when the Flow documentary of Colot came out. So, obviously I knew who Colot was, but I didn't really know who he was. I mean, he was, before my generation. So obviously that documentary, you're like, I mean, you can't go wrong with Kerry Colot. So I started looking into school academics and stuff. And I was kind of scared to tell my mom, honestly, because I was like, she's just going to shoot it down. It's not even a thing. So I probably put it off for a week, honestly, looking back. But eventually I called her. I was like, hey, we're having this whole coaching staff change, I want to look into Campbell. That's I want to do. And she was like, okay, let me look at it. And of course she Googles, finds the trust and wealth. And she's like, actually, I'm in. I think we should look at it. This is great. And I was like,
she's calling me. She calls me Coach Sugar. She's Coach Sugar. Can you talk to Drew about Campbell? And I want to stay in this, even though I wasn't that involved. I remember the day Drew called me and told me that the AD said he doesn't care if anybody transfers. And the reason I was super curious is because when Jesse Delgado was at Cal Poly and Mark Perry left to go to Illinois, Jesse was allowed to transfer, and they made it difficult. And the former head coach, John Acevedo, stepped in and said, listen, you have got to let this kid go with Mark Berry. And so when I heard that the AD said, because they fought, this is my recollection. So it could be different. I wasn't talking to the Delgados or Coach Acevedo, but this is my recollection. And then, so when Drew said, the AD said it was okay, I said, are you sure? And he said, yes. I said, did anybody else hear it? He said, yes. Yes, Carolyn, Joshy heard it, who was Drew's roommate, but a kid from California that I was close with. And I remember that. So, you know, this whole time we've been going through this with him, that is what happened. And I'm disgusted.
Wow, you could see your face change just now, and you could see how much you care for this young man and want to see what's next. So,
sorry, I just had to throw that.
Oh,
out.
no. I mean, that's exactly how it happened. I mean, it was literally the process we went through. So of course, you know, I'm like, all right, well, and that was under the old transfer rules. So without the whole transfer portal that they got now, which makes it a lot easier for athletes to transfer. So I actually had to ask for permission to get contact with Campbell. So I go into the AD's office, I ask him, he goes, and this was right when Coach Cerritos was being hired. He was actually coming in that week. So he was like, hey, how about you wait till Cerritos comes in, talk to him, and then you can come back to me. And I was like, all right, that's fair. That's what you said in our meeting with the team. That's what I'll do. Meet with Coach Cerritos the end of the week, talk with him for almost an hour. Great conversation, great guy, his goals for the program, everything. But I was still, you know, it's just like, I don't want to be that guy in 5 years, looks back on my wrestling career and goes, what if I would have went to Campbell? You know, Kerry Colott, like, doesn't get much better than that. So I go back to the AD the next week. And I remember because it was 8 a.m. in the morning. I didn't want to be there. Obviously, waking up, I don't think I had class till 10, 11. So I was like, all right, I have to get up. This sucks. Go meet. So I walk in, and he's like, oh, I meant to reschedule with you. Sorry, I forgot to email you or something, but we'll just talk. It'll be quick. So I have to go walk in. I go, hey, I still want permission to contact. I still want to reach out. And he just 180s on me. He starts like berating me in his office. And I just remember it's 8 a.m. So I was like, what is going on here? He's like, I think.
And this is after he told you it's okay to transfer.
Yeah, this is after that team meeting. So that he's going, I think you're leaving a good degree at Cal Poly, blah, blah, blah. I think Coach Sentes has been illegally recruiting you. All this stuff. He's like, no, I'm not granting you access to leave. And I'm just kind of sitting there stunned. It was like a 5-minute meeting, if that. And I was just like, okay. Like, I'm not sure what to do. And I think he was like, yeah, if you want to appeal it, you can. Or maybe I got an email or something, like you can go through these steps. So I talked to my parents. I'm like, well, I still want to do this, especially after that. Like, what the hell was that? So
yeah, that just left a bad taste in your mouth.
Exactly. So I have to go through this whole process. You know, I have to get an appeal with faculty members of the school who aren't affiliated with the wrestling or with athletics. So like professors and stuff, 4-person panel, I believe. Had to meet with them and like a hearing, pretty much. They actually grant me permission to contact. So then I go on my visit. I start talking with Coach Colott, whatever, and I'm just like, yeah, I think this is kind of the place for me. I've obviously been berated by the AD, all this stuff. So then ultimately I decided like I want to transfer. And it's actually I got back from my visit, and within not even 48 hours, probably 36 hours. So I was getting calls from Coach Cerritos, like, hey, I got the AD on my back. Like, I need to know now whether you're going or staying. And I was like, I hadn't even really thought about it because I was kind of trying to put it off, and called my parents that night and was just started talking through it. And then was like, yeah, this isn't the place for me. And even during all that,
why does a young man your age have to get put through this shit? I mean, you're
exactly. I mean, I want to say too, I haven't really actually.
What are you, 19 at the time? 20? I mean,
No,
I was 18.
He was a baby.
Yeah, I'm a year behind, so I'm young for my grade. So I was 18, obviously first year on my own, all this. And actually, I've never really told this on a forum like this before, but I didn't list it in my video I put out just because I didn't want to make it too long. But during that whole process, of course, my mom's like, all right, Drew's never had a problem with authority figures like this. Like, there's got to be some mix up here, someone, whatever. So my mom calls him, the AD, Mr. Oberholm, calls him and is like, hey, like, I just want to clear this up, blah, blah, blah. And he starts telling my mom, he's like, yeah, I think that there's an inappropriate relationship with your son and Coach Sentes. Actually uses those words. So kind of implying almost like a sexual relationship. And so I have no idea this is happening. Like my mom called behind my back. So I had no idea. So she immediately is like wigging out, calls Scotty because she's like, well, she hasn't talked to Scotty at all this whole
Listen,
process.
if a coach told me, if someone told me that they thought my son and a coach, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm calling. I mean, I may be knocking. I don't know.
Yes.
They're, and yeah.
My mom was thrown off. So she called Scotty me like, hey, I know there's been all this drama. We haven't talked, but like he's implying there's been this sexual relationship. Like, I just need you to know. And so Scotty just takes it directly to Title IX at the school. He's like, I'm not playing with this. Like this could affect, my life, my future employment, like all this stuff.
So
So Scotty takes it right away. They send, I think, the AD a cease and desist. So he's not allowed to talk to Scotty anymore. And there's all this bad blood between them over the hiring process for the new coach. I can't really speak too much on it because obviously it didn't involve me, but Scotty told me about it. So obviously there's bad blood there, which is what's pretty much affecting my eligibility. So instead of getting Scotty in trouble, he's coming back at me and just taking my eligibility.
So at this point, you've decided, so first you're told by a grown ass man, right? That should live by his word, that you're allowed to transfer because things are changing. Then you make the decision to do it and you're told no. And then the backlash is we're going to tell your parents that the coach is inappropriately doing things towards your kid to try to influence the parents, to influence their kid to stay here.
Correct.
Yes, pretty much. I don't think I'd officially made my decision yet. So this is all leading up to me, like, because I really was on the fence. Like I pretty much wanted to stay, but I was like, hey, let's at least check out my options. But he just was making it, kind of impossible to stay. So then by that point,
let me jump in here. So I'm at a gas station and his mom calls me because I remember I'm at a gas station, because mom calls me. I know in my heart, Drew would rather stay in California because at the time he had a girlfriend that he really liked. That's true, right?
Yeah.
Down at home. Like, and he's not one of those athletes that has to talk to the girlfriend all the time or be there. I think I only met her once in all the years I knew him, but she was always there. So I knew Drew probably did not want to be far away, but his mom said to me, Carolyn, you have to look at this trust program. It's more academics. And anybody who knows me, like even Jason Welch, when Cale Sanderson was recruiting him at Iowa State and Ortiz, it was at Arizona State then, I said, Jason, you need to go to the best academics that has the best wrestling. And he went to Northwestern. So I remember her calling me. And when I looked into it, I said, Drew, academically, you can do your grad year there. You can get your MBA there. My daughter did accelerated MBA. She's 2 years ahead of Drew in school. I'm very academic oriented. This is what you need to do. It made him further away from where I lived at the time, which wasn't convenient for him because he was dependent. When you have a coach for 5 or 6 years, you are dependent on them. So even if you're just with them for a couple of weeks or 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, they've got to get there when you need them. And he could talk about that in his NCAA tournament career and how Kolot would bring me in, allow me in, welcome me in when Drew needs before we're headed somewhere big. But go back. But I remember it was all about the academics. And then when she called me another time to tell me about her conversation with the athletic director, then I started to get hot. And see, I'm a little different than most people. What's my first response to every situation, Drew? Call a
lawyer. Right
that's
away.
why people don't mess with me. They
Yeah,
try.
so
That's where we are in this situation. I'm hot. His mom's hot.
yeah.
Yeah,
So now
I mean, I'm probably messing up the
Now
time.
you're officially at Campbell, right?
Now,
and,
yeah,
and you're trying to wrestle and you lose. They're trying to keep you from that. The NCAA is not getting involved. What's going on there?
so the process finished at Cal Poly where, so like I said, I had no idea this whole Title IX thing was going on. So one, random week, I'm just doing school, training here and there. I get this Title IX email in my Cal Poly email, and I'm like, Title IX, why? I have to get like meet this person at this time. It's in between my class. I'm like, what is going on? Like messing up my week, weeks are, very monotonous, as a college athlete. So I'm like, I don't even know where the building is. I don't know anything. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go to this room, whatever. So I go up there, I sit in this, little waiting room, and they're like, yeah, come back. They're like, hey, so there's been this Title IX complaint with you and Coach Sentes. Like, is there any sexual relationship or something going on? And I think they legit think I'm like traumatized or something. So I'm just like, no, there's nothing going on. I don't know where. I had no idea where this came from. I had no clue. And I was so confused, but yeah, that like set it off. So at least, made everything right in that sense. Nothing really came of that after. But I think I called my mom and finally got the scoop and was like, all right, so that was the AD, all this stuff. So then from there, I go on the visit and everything, and I'm just like, hey, I can't be here anymore. It's just not the place for me, no matter how much I would like to stay. So now that I want to transfer, of course, I request permission to transfer. AD denies it. So now I have to do that exact same appeal that I did before with the same people, but to get permission to actually transfer this time. So I do the meeting, all this stuff. I bring up.
The first one was permission to speak.
Yes.
It's like a dog. Okay.
Pretty much just permission to contact another school. Okay. So I got that, go to this meeting finally. I bring up examples of like of Jesse Delgado, actually, who I don't know personally, but I was like, hey, he transferred from Cal Poly. Same thing, his coach left. He followed the assistant coach to his school, ended up being a national champ, all this stuff. Like brought up that example, brought up some other ones, talked about the rules. And this committee was, full of professors, and some were athletes back in, 80s, 90s.
There was a woman professor there that
I distinctly remember one of them. She was like, yeah, I played volleyball in the 90s or something, or some years. She's like, yeah, I just remember back then, like, if you transferred, you lost that year no matter what. And I remember I was just like, well, no, that's not actually the rule. It's based on being granted it by your athletic department, your AD. Like, that's why I'm here, all this stuff. And this is as this was as the year was over. So this whole process was from March, 12th, 15th, 14th, right around NCAA time, to June 10th, because Cal Poly gets out late on quarter system. So this is a 3-month process that I'm going through my whole spring quarter. And I find out
trying to go to school too.
Yeah, the whole deal. So it's just
education.
Yeah, just craziness. So, that was right as I was leaving the dorms. I think I literally moved out of the dorms that day and then went to my meeting with my dad. And then and then I was denied, 2-3 days later. At the time I, didn't really know my options, didn't know what. I was kind of at the point where I just want to go to Campbell. I just want to,
You were denied the permission to transfer, or you were denied to get back the year of eligibility. So you could transfer, but you lost the year
without losing a year of eligibility.
Yes. So you can technically transfer wherever you want. No school can really stop you, but they can take your.
If I walk out of a school and I decide I want to go to a different college, but it's the eligibility.
It's the eligibility, yes, sir. Yeah. So they took that year. Coach Colot knew that, and obviously he was gracious enough to, hey, we obviously can't get this year. You'll get 3, and he knew how stupid it was. So we even tried to fight it when I got to Campbell through our compliance department. Was ultimately denied again, but at this time I tore my meniscus. It was actually middle of January. So I was kind of like, well, I'm out for the season anyway. Not really worth fighting. Whatever. And then in the summer of 2017, I believe, they changed the transfer rules. That's when they started the portal. And so then I realized, I actually I have a case I could argue, about if under these rules, I would have been granted permission. I would have retained my year of eligibility. So then we talked my compliance, and they're like, hey, the best way to file this is actually once your eligibility expires, and then you file for a 6th year and get another year. And so I was like, all right, perfect. I'll wait. So, I waited the 2 years. Obviously COVID happened this year. Didn't get my NCAA tournament. I was bummed about that, but I was like, hey, I still got the chance for the 6th year. Let's do it. Pretty much that week or the next week, I emailed compliance and was like, hey, I want to get this process started. Can we do it? Start that process. that's another 4 or 5 month process just dealing with NCAA in appeals. And in August, I was ultimately denied for the final time through the NCAA channels. And then me and my parents were like, hey, we're probably done here. Lawyer fees, all this stuff.
They're working with my lawyer at this time, right?
Yeah, with Howard Jacobs, and he was,
Great.
and we were just like, hey, Scotty's hooking me up where at least I'll be able to finish, get my second master's degree, coach a little bit as a student assistant, at least kind of work with the team, do some administrative duties, just kind of do what I can for the team, And then actually an alumni who got back in with the program these past few months is a lawyer up in Richmond, Virginia. And he heard my case from some other alumni and Coach Sentez and was like, I actually think he has a good chance if he takes this to court, because obviously a lot of other athletes have taken it to court and gotten their years back because, it's so BS to say it of the NCAA to take people's years like that. So we're actually looking at
what the hell. I can understand. You can't just give everybody a year back. I get it. There's got to be a rule and there's got to be a process and there's got to be requirements, because how many you'd have thousands of kids saying, hey, I want another year, right? So I get there has to be some sort of, whatever governor to the whole process, right? But this is total bullshit. Like the NCAA, what does it hurt to give you another year? If you look back at the shit that one of their ADs put you through already, does that guy still even have a job? What a piece of crap that guy.
He's the AD still at Cal Poly.
So I'm going to jump in here. So when Drew goes to Campbell for his first, he's never heard this story. So he goes to Campbell for his first year. I'm on the phone with him. He's just there, and he does not sound okay to me. So I say, hey, Drew, I need to come east. I'm living in California at the time. Now I live in both Virginia and California. So I say, I need to come east. I have Carson Manville with me. Bring Ryan Franco. We fly out. I go over to Christiansburg, do a clinic over there. Sonny Close was the coach there. I do a clinic. I say, hey, I'm going to be in town. I'm coming over. But I'm really calling because Drew doesn't sound right to me. So because the kid is all the way across the country, Scotty, right? He's like Mr. Popular, smooth talker all around. Everybody loves him. And Drew is not someone who asks when he needs help. I mean, I've known him a long time. He does not ask. I have kids that will tell me right up front what they need. It's not Drew. So I go out there. I'm hauling, I think Ryan, Frankie, and Anthony Ching. I haul that. Ryan Franco is a really great wrestler. And we've been up at the Manvilles, and I go out there, and Drew, to me, is not okay. I'm worried. I've never met Colot. I know Scotty just on the phone, and I hit the building. Drew and I walk in, and I'm just talking to Drew, and Colot yells down the corridor, is that you, Carolyn Wester? I said, yes, sir. He's like, come on in here. And I was like, and he said to me, if you care enough to come all the way out here for this kid, I'm going to care for this kid back. And then I was comfortable, because it wasn't okay. Drew was at Cal Poly in California with his friends, where there was a set standard. His parents were 3 hours away. I was 3 hours away. He roomed with Joshie. His life was all in order. And here he goes out to get his best education. And that dude, the day I questioned Drew, did anybody else hear that AD say that? And when he got to Campbell, I did not want them to wait. I felt waiting was a problem, because in all business negotiations, everything, people associate patience with acquiescence, and they move on and they don't care. And they think you're not going to bite back. And so in actuarial math, and you're doing insurance and what's the likelihood of this accident happening after this many years of payment, the longer it goes on, the less likely something's going to happen. So it kept the people at Campbell from having to deal with it. Not that they didn't want to, but here's a new guy with a new head coach, with a new assistant coach, in a program that had changed coaches off frequently before Kerry. That's correct, right, Drew?
Yeah, Campbell wasn't the best.
It wasn't stable. And I did not want them to wait, but I had no say. And I voiced it to his mom, and she's like, we're going to wait. But to me, and now that Drew's in this process and involved with this federal attorney, which we're thrilled about, and then the other attorney, to me, every kid that was on that Cal Poly team who heard him say that, who chooses not to put it in writing in an affidavit, the reason they're not doing it is because they have latent fear of the constant bullying athletic departments do to kids, athletes. I mean, there are a lot of coaches who've said to me, you know why everybody hates you? Because you can't be fired. And I think to myself, that probably is super annoying. I started coaching at 42 years of age, and thousands of kids come to me, and I'm on ESPN, and Habib Nurmagomedov would deck you if you even look, Luke Rockhold, if you even look cross-eyed at me. But I am not going to put up with that toward kids. You're an athletic person, athletic director. You are a public servant.
You get one opportunity as a young man to do.
That's right. And these kids, these other athletes at Cal Poly are people who know what happened and are uncomfortable. I mean, a lot of people have stepped up to help Drew. I'm jumping the story a little bit here, but the ones who haven't, it's not because they don't like Drew, or it's not like the wrestling program is going to be in trouble at Cal Poly. It's because they still are scared. I mean, I would have parents who would come to me and say, the high school wrestling coach says I can't do that. I'm like, that's a civil liberties issue. That's illegal. Just go to the ACLU. I mean, it's not going to happen. But they're all afraid. They're all afraid.
Academically, you can get a college degree until you're 103 years old, right? But athletically, you can't play wrestling or play wrestling, I guess. You can't wrestle at a high level until you're 103. These kids get one shot, like Eminem, one opportunity to have their athletic college career and get the opportunities to do what they do, and to have it taken from you is not fair. And then to then have NCAA fight for kids that say, oh, well, it's about the education. We don't want to pay them. It's about this, it's about that. And now you have a kid here saying, I don't want money. I don't want anything. I just want another year to play. And you're not going to give me that chance? I mean, that's so stupid.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know the athletic director at Cal Poly personally. I have no idea what the duplicity is or why this duplicitous statement in public forum to kids and athletes, and then to turn around. I don't know what motivated that of him, but that is a form of bullying and harassment and usury that is not acceptable.
But as a man,
at a public school, at a public university, you cannot.
As a man, at this point, as a man, just what does it hurt for you to say, you know what, I fucked up. I did tell him he can transfer, and then I was concerned about my program. I have a job to do here. I was having a coach come in. I was scared of losing my athletes. The program was kind of on a fine line. I did some things. I said some things I shouldn't have said to try to protect my livelihood. We get it. I screwed up. Give the kid his year back. I mean, what the hell does that hurt as a man, as a grown man? Do you have children? Does this guy have children? Would he want his children treated that way? Would he want his family treated that way? Would he want his nieces and nephews treated that way? Like, just be a bit, just,
it's crazy. And obviously, Mr. Ward, we never met. So this is my first time explaining the story to you. And it's like, any reasonable person I explain the story to, and they're like, I don't get it. Makes no sense. Why don't you have your year? And that's how I felt this whole time. Is just like, it seems so black and white to me. And especially what irks me the most about the whole deal, like you said, can't give everyone 6 years. There's got to be a process and all this stuff. And I get that. And that's why I've gone through all the avenues, the NCAA avenues and everything. But that entire time, I actually never once spoke in person to an NCAA worker. Never spoke to the caseworker, never spoke to the caseworker's boss who oversees all those cases they look at. And then I never spoke to anyone on the appeal committee who made the final decision about my case. We actually applied for a teleconference waiver. So it's actually in that final appeal, they can grant you a teleconference where you can be the one to explain your case to to the appeal committee, not just your caseworker. So we applied that or sent that in. We wrote up all the legislation, put my reasonings, all this stuff. Used our lawyer Howard Jacobs to write this up. This 3-page document, and they still denied me. The only time I personally ever spoke on my case, as you could say, was I wrote 2 statements. One in 2016 when we had not filed the initial waiver through Campbell when I transferred, and one more at the start of this process back in April. And that's a page and a half paper. Other than that, I've never spoken in person.
You know what drives me crazy too? Thinking about this. What would this situation be if you were the starting quarterback? If you were the starting point guard?
I want to talk about it too. Is also like,
if you were the pitcher on the baseball team, if you were on a money sport that drives the college tuition, that drives the college dorms, that pays, that brings in big TV contracts, you'd have your year of eligibility. And don't, NCAA people are going to tell, oh, it's bullshit. We've denied other people. Yeah, that were wrestlers, that were volleyball players, that were soccer players, that were lacrosse players. How many, unless you were, unfortunately, there's kids that have raped, steal, beat women, beat men, got caught doing drugs, cocaine, and they get transferred from the school, but they still keep their eligibility and they get to play at the next school. Not to name names, but there's a really good quarterback in the NFL right now that happened to, and he's seems to be doing just fine, right? So
no, that's how I feel too. And part of it, I wasn't a big name in high school. Like I said, placed in California, placed at NCAA flow, but I wasn't, I wasn't nationally ranked. I wasn't all this stuff. I started 7th grade, really made the jump junior year working with Carolyn in wrestling prep. So, I think, just not being the bigger name, you don't get the publicity and everything. And not to rain on anyone else's parades, but you look at all the other cases of people, you look at the Suriano, you look at Mikey Philippi, who from Pitt, who actually I messaged on Instagram, to see with his case, trying to get some details, and he was helping me out. Super cool guy. And,
love him. Had him on. And the same thing. You know how I got him on? The same way you came on. I had a couple that owns a gym out in Pittsburgh come on, and she's like, "Hold on, I'm gonna get my brother-in-law or whatever. I think it's brother-in-law on." And she clicks, and here's the #1 kid in the country. I'm like, Felipe. I'm like, hey,
That's
look
funny.
who it is.
That's
right?
so awesome.
Yeah.
No, so I reached out to him, and he was saying he'll try and get some information from his athletic department if he can, and just all the other cases of top athletes that got their year. I'm with you. I definitely think it hurts, not being the money sport, not being the bigger names. But obviously we're trying to fight that.
TV contracts. You're not bringing in athletic wear. You're not bringing in Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Nike. If you're the starting point guard or you're the starting center or you're the starting quarterback, this shit goes away. They sweep it under the rug and they look differently, because you know why? Because the college people are fighting also, because they're saying, wait a second, this is our quarterback, this is our pitcher, this is the one that we get to March Madness, we get all the money, we get to one of the big bowl games with. Without him, we lose millions of dollars in revenue. So
I'm not like, what's the
and I don't mean Scotty's fighting for you because he's your coach.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
lots of people.
I mean bigger, larger people over Campbell. Like, it's great that this guy stepped in and said, hey, I got your back, because now you have a big money guy in Campbell, a booster, saying, hey, listen, this kid matters, not because of money. He matters because he's a effing human being that's just trying to get another year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, well, what I was going to say was, I don't like to, what's the word? When you try to guess what's going to speculate. I'm not a big speculator. Like, I don't want to speculate. I'm all about using a lawyer and the law effectively. If I were Cal Poly and I realized someone had a complaint against us who look up Howard Jacobs, the athlete's attorney, hired this attorney who's just incredible and is now using a federal lawyer. The amount of money that if the Morgans were to choose to go after them for bullying, emotional duress, financial issues, hardship to Drew.
It needs to all happen.
Well, I mean, if I was Cal Poly, or you know, if it was in one of my former, you know, business responsibilities in my pre-wrestling career,
Mhm.
I would have resolved that problem right away. I would have mea culpa'd and said, yeah, we have a problem. Yep, go right ahead, young man.
Well, if the kid was lying, it wouldn't last this long, because eventually the kid at his age would say, all right, mom, I was lying. He wouldn't say, okay, mom, keep spending millions of dollars on these attorneys. At some point, it would come out, the truth would come out from the kid if he
Oh,
was
I mean,
lying.
well, with that, I got 6 right now, trying to work on some more from, because it was after season, that meeting, so not everyone on the team was there. You know, I had class conflicts and stuff, but I have 6 of my former teammates have signed notarized affidavits saying they heard the exact same thing. So it's not, yeah, obviously if I was lying at this point, there'd be no one backing me up. And even when it happened, like you said, I was definitely like, because I wasn't planning on transferring, didn't think anything of it. So when I did start turning the wheels on looking to transfer, I asked around. I was like, hey, he said that, right? Like I wasn't crazy. And they're like,
Well,
yeah.
and I'm sure before this fight started, your mom and dad sat you down in a closed room and said, yo, before we start this fight, are you full of shit or is this real? Because
Well, I think Joshy,
right?
I think his roommate, you know, his parents are, I mean, it was, I mean, there were so many of us saying, I think his mother and I were saying, somebody else heard that. Oh yeah, Josh, yeah, I heard that. We heard it. So we were all confident that we heard it. We just couldn't even imagine that it would get this far.
What I hate is that I hate it for the kid, because college is for the next 40 years, right? Not for the next 4 years. Your athletic career in college is your memories for a lifetime. And the memory that this poor guy is going to have is this stupid shit, when all he wanted was 1 year of eligibility. And now it's going to cause you, whether you're NCAA or whether you're Cal State Poly, it's going to cause you now to pony up. If this guy doesn't get a year of eligibility, I hope these attorneys come at Cal Poly with all they got, and this kid gets paid for his
I
hardship.
suspect that nobody above the AD has any kind of awareness of what's going on. And I think, especially with the state of even prior to COVID, California collegiate university system was taxed financially heavily. I mean, just struggling. So I think when somebody figures out what's going on, that something will happen. I think it's one of those things that it's never gotten above anybody's head.
But they preach it's about the kid. It's about the kid. It's about the kid. It's about the kid. Bullshit. You're proving to us that it's not, because all he's asking for is, and it's not even like a whole year. What's a season? 3 months or whatever the hell it is. So it's not.
Especially with COVID right now, we're gonna have a 1 month season, so it's not a lot I'm asking for here.
But at this point, it's about the point. You told me something.
It is about the point. It is about the point, and we have Safe Sport. We have all these organizations that are trying to give people voices when they've been bullied, sexually harassed, etc. But if you don't stand up for yourself or for the kid that's there, then the kids go, yeah, all of that is window dressing. Nobody's ever really going to help me. They're not going to help me, and that's what's not okay. And I guess by now I've met a lot of college coaches and college programs.
Yeah,
Colot is on it, and Colot has even when some situations have occurred that were negative for me, Colot has always let me know what was going on.
And I bet you, I mean, I've only known Scotty Sentis for the months that I started this, but every conversation I've had with him has been amazing. Everybody I talked to that's been around him or been part of anything he's involved in says incredible things about him. And I guarantee you 100% he's trying to help you. And it's just bullshit. It's total bullshit. I can't wait to post this video and tag those people, because I hope they see it. It's like when I had the Safe Stanford Wrestling on, and I tagged them. So what? I called you an asshole. You're an asshole for messing this kid's life up. I mean, if you want to call me an asshole back, I can take it.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? I mean, go to hell. Give the kid the eligibility. And then to go and say that the kid was having sexual relations or whatever, you're going to say that that's not what I said. I said inappropriate relationships. That could mean a lot of different things. That could mean he recruited me illegally. That could mean he did. No, well, why did Title IX get involved then? Why did they question him about that? Title IX didn't just show up and question him. Title IX had to go to the AD. Title IX had to go to Scotty Sentes. Title IX had to interview. It's like when child services gets called for child abuse. They got to interview the kid, they got to interview the parent involved, and they got to interview the guy that made the complaint. They can't just say, okay, I take your word for it. So they then had to interview the AD who's confirming what he's saying, that causes them to say, okay, let me go get the kid. Right? Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
Well, that's correct. I went through a Title IX investigation at another university from one of my athletes a few years ago, and they were so professional, and they asked every one of those questions.
Yeah, and they got to talk to everyone involved. They got to talk to the accuser, the accusee, the person that's being accused. I mean, you can't just say, okay, I believe what you're saying.
Well, in the case that I was involved in, there was some screenshots that supplied words that supplied merit to the complaint of the athlete. In Drew's case, we have 6 affidavits of adult kids who graduated from Cal Poly, who are not employed by Drew's parents, who do not work for companies that Drew's parents are involved with. They don't, Drew's parents are not politicians. There's no influence on them. And they're saying, yes, that's what was said. And that should be the end of it. Drew should have his eligibility back, and Cal Poly should let it go.
Yeah, this is
and whatever happens to the athletic director, if you could just say I made a mistake, like you described.
Yeah,
I mean,
Paul, that's where Luke Smith is now, right?
I think he's at Bakersfield.
He's at Bakersfield. Okay.
Yeah.
Good, because I like him. I was like, man, I hope I'm not bashing Lightning Luke Smith.
No, and that's the thing too, is I have no problem with the staff at Cal Poly. They were awesome to me. Whenever Reno was, I think I was talking to him this year. Yeah, Chewy, I've talked with him. They're all great. So it's just kind of one guy, leaving that sour taste. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not. I guess salty is a good word. I've had a great career. I've done a lot of great things. I've been around amazing people. Obviously, going to Campbell, with Kolak, Coach Sentes, Coach Mike Evans. That was kind of my guy since I was his weight range. Blaze Cabell, Garrett Kiley, who's now at Northern Colorado. Just great coaching staff, great people. So eligibility or not, I'm just so thankful for everything that's happening, and kind of love where I'm at.
Well, maybe Cal State can start your life off with some cash in your bank account.
I mean, I wouldn't turn it down, but also just get that eligibility.
Very money motivated, that's for sure.
Because life,
great at volunteering.
Yeah, life, you need it. Well, listen, this has been awesome, amazing. Totally went in a totally not expected. It was awesome. I'm so happy. And then when I saw you and we started talking, I'm like, wait a second. I know who this kid is. I had this conversation, and this sucks. And I'm going to share this, and I'm going to tag Cal Poly, and I'm going to tag NCAA, and I'm going to tag whoever I can. I don't know who to tag, but I'm just going to post it and tag it. I'm going to share it in all the wrestling rooms I know, and I hope the ones that I don't share it in, you guys share it in. And the Sheridan is where the grappler was, but we're talking about Sheridan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And this was awesome. Okay, so let's end it off with a little bit of fun here, because that was serious shit. And California pizza or California raisins?
Ooh.
California raisins.
Yeah, raisins. California pizza's not what it's known for.
Not what it's known for. Okay.
You're talking about wine country, so those raisins are pretty freaking good.
All right, so high C or ankle pick?
Oh, ankle.
Pick, yeah,
Yeah.
easy.
All right.
That's like
All
for
right. So two good burger joints that I've experienced in this country. I think you guys probably have too. In and Out on the West Coast or Cookout on the East Coast.
In and out.
Oh, you picked a good one. Oh, that's tough.
They're both really good, right?
Yeah, I think the California in me has to go In and Out,
Yeah.
but the price you can't beat at Cookout. Man, a late night Cookout run is hits different.
Cookouts, I really shouldn't say.
Yeah.
We went to Cookout for the first time this weekend. That's what made me think of it to put it out here. As I've been to In and Out when I went to Palm Springs, I think it was, for a meeting. My son, we got home and he's like, Dad, can we just make a 7-hour run back to Cookout? I'm like, not for the tournament, for Cookout. Okay.
Super 32, we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Singles or doubles?
No, me personally, I shoot more singles. I'd say I'm not the most explosive type.
Nice. All right. You guys do wings or burgers?
Oh, I don't know. Probably a burger, but good wing. I know good wings.
Oh, burgers for sure.
Yeah, good wings. I'd probably go with that, but the average place of burger.
All right. I like it. You go arm drag or arm throw?
Arm drag is at 90 degrees and your straight wrist pull and your fingers in correctly, I'm down. If not, I'd rather you throw them. And I'm happy to show you why.
There you go.
Not physically, please. I'll give you my kid. You can
Oh,
throw
I
him.
love to. That's a big mistake people make is they don't think I'm strong or can partially.
Bad news.
But I can.
Bad news.
I like it. So fries or tater tots?
Yeah, fries.
Fries.
Tater
Leg
tots
lace? Tater tots are what?
mushy.
Mushy.
They're always mushy. You can ask for extra crispy fries. You
Yeah.
can't get extra crispy tater tots. They're too mushy inside. Not from, where's that place we go get hash from? Waffle House.
Waffle House.
Scotty took me to Waffle House one time with Drew and
Oh.
Ching and Ryan and those guys.
I would tell you about a Waffle House that I went to when I was younger in Jacksonville, but it's attached to a place that we probably shouldn't talk about. So, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about, sugar.
It was a very good, it was a weird experience. Leg lace or gut wrench?
Lace and it. Yep.
Sided figure. I don't care which, as long as it's 3-sided. No 4-sided figures, please.
All right, Oreos or Chips Ahoy?
Oh, Oreos.
Oreos, easy. That's my go-to.
Double stuff for sure.
Yep.
I don't know what happens. I buy a bag of double. This happened this weekend. Because we were at like I don't know, not an Airbnb, but it had a kitchen in it, whatever it was. But so I stopped at Publix and we got some groceries, and they had the package of Oreo double stuff on sale. I was like, I like those, so I got them. Right?
Dangerous.
I put them in the kitchen. I had 2 kids with me. I had Daniel, and then I had a buddy of his. Both stayed in the room. I took 3 cookies. I woke up the next morning. There was like a sleeve and a half gone, and I was like, hey, what happened to the Oreos? And they all, of course, said, we didn't need them.
Yeah, of course.
Down here, Chrissy. This is Chrissy Creason. He went 9-0 as a 7th grader at Battle of the Berg in high school division. Really,
Wow.
Really I got him some Trader Joe's. What are they called? JoJo's. I say, hey, have 2 or 3. The next morning,
He won't even look. He won't even look.
he knows what happened to those Oreos. But the thing that they do know for sure is that I didn't need them. Because if you ever see me eat something like that, so it was just me and Chrissy. So he had to fess up.
Oh, yeah.
The scale was broken also, but we've outgrown that phase too.
Oh, yeah. Well, the 2 boys,
I can't say that anymore.
the 2 boys I had with me, it was like, Daniel, go, I didn't need it. Okay, well, I only had 3, so I don't know where the rest went. But yeah, they go fast.
That's how Chrissy goes to bed and then wakes up the next day and weighed more before he learned how to cut weight better. How'd that happen? Was that
Jojo.
fat? The fat bee came in the night.
The
This
fact
kid is a badass and a very good at managing his weight now, but that's part of the process, right? So he knows anytime you're missing something, Chrissy can tell you how it happened, because he's come up with every excuse. Him and Carson Manville have come up with every excuse possible.
You keep kicking ass, little buddy, and keep eating Oreos. Don't let that stop. They're great.
You haven't met his mother. She'd eat you.
Take two double stuffs and make them one.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. Last one. Half or cradle?
Probably half. Might as well.
Head thread.
Yeah.
Head thread, then cradle. Well, if it's a 3-sided figure for a cradle, I'm down. Straight wrist. But otherwise.
Angle the elbow at 45 degrees with the wrist at 37.
Yeah, but actually that's not an effective. That's not effective. It has to be 3-sided. Mathematically.
You're getting her started. Just wait.
And here's the thing, Coach Ford. Like, I don't have any preconceived notions. So when I watch wrestling, I'm not going, wow, that is, a famed person who deserves all the credit they got for winning whatever they want. I'm just looking at it going, if I was in engineering class, I would fail. And it has it's not meant, I don't mean anything toward anybody. I don't mean anything toward anybody.
You look at it's like when I talk to a ref and I say to a ref, oh man, did you see that wrestling match? And he's like, the problem is I don't look at the wrestling match like you look at the wrestling match, because I'm a ref by trade. So when I'm looking, we're legs in, we're hands down, was this there, was that there? I'm not looking, oh, wow, that was a great throw. That was a good this, like us as fans, right? So I'm sure when you're looking, you're like, okay, well, that's not right. That might have worked, but it could work better this way. It could work better that way. It could work better this way. And,
I remember hearing from a man in Virginia who owns a facility here that he was, skeptical when he met me, or, thought I don't know, someone. So he called Mike Evans at Campbell because he knew Mike. And he said, hey, have you ever heard of this lady? And he's like, yes. And the reason she's so good is she sees all this stuff that we never see. And Mike, when Drew wrestled at, I guess, the US Open last year, the year before, he would say, he would ask me to get in the corner. And then he'd just say, you go, and I'll yell over top. But you can hear in tons of matches of Drew's, the ones that Flo have, because last year he was featured, I don't know, maybe 3 times as, dirty Flo move of the event. You can hear, you can hear me. Drew, put your throat on the mat. Drew, straighten out your right wrist. Drew, engage your transverse ab. And Mike could call out or going, go, whoa, go, But that's the truth. So for me, I want wrestling to be taught in the way that's going to help more kids wrestle.
Yeah, I had a coach on.
Be successful.
Yeah, I had a coach.
I mean, I'm not pro anybody's team, and I'm not anti anybody's team. So when people get all emotional about the team and what's going down and all that stuff, I'm like, I just want the kid to go to college, dude. I don't mean not to get on your hate flight, toward these people, but I don't care.
Yeah,
and that
that's awesome.
People a lot.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a wrestling coach on, and he's a wrestling coach down in Polk County. And he said, it's funny. My wife always says, I can be a wrestling coach. And he's like, yeah, why? Because all you guys do is scream, wrestle, 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 wrestle. She's like, I can do that. Circle, 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 circle. She's like, I can do that too. You see, I can wrestle.
That Battle of the Berg, we had tried to get Chrissy on as a free agent on teams, but people don't know him here. So come over here. So he's wrestling for Warhawks Red. Yes, ma'am. Warhawks Red, and Coach Avery and Coach Porter are there, JC Porter. And Potter. Is it Potter? Oh, they're very nice people. First time we met them. So Chrissy starts wrestling, and I'm talking to them, and they're all around me too, because they don't know me. And so Chrissy starts to do something, and the coach and everybody else starts, I said, hey, just a minute. Just give me a minute. And they're like, this is a team. And then Chrissy does what I say and they go, we're out. We get it. And then the rest of the time they would come over and go, we just want to learn. Right? Because I'm not going to say anything. I don't need to say wrestle. The thing I say to them is, you're not moving as fast as you think you are. And they go, oh, I need
He's
to
laughing
wrestle.
because he knows he's been through it.
I've
And that's
gotten
exactly
that
what I heard you
too
say.
many times.
Yeah, when I was sitting in your corner that time, those are some of the words I heard you. He was on your guy. I don't know who it was. You were on
Probably
that.
Enzo, if it was on one of those mats, Enzo or Aiden.
It was on. It had to be. Yeah, it had to be Enzo or Steven because they both placed and they were on the back four the second day, so they had to place.
Right.
And
It was Enzo.
yeah, he got on the back, and you were like, okay, flatten it, flatten it, flatten it.
Well, I'm sure I
right?
didn't say that. I said, squeeze your triangle muscle, contract your calves. I would never
Yeah.
say flatten
Okay,
because
well,
I'm very specific. See, that's the difference. Like if I say to
but
Chris,
I do remember you say, neck on the mat, and then I remember you saying, okay, you didn't call it a half. You did. You said-
head thread, because we don't have. We
and
had
then
thread.
and then you were like push or something, and then
Push
the
your
guy-
elbow.
yeah,
I
he did.
remember now that you're talking about what Matt.
Yeah, he did whatever you told him to do, and then it was a pin, and then you were like, good job, and you got up and left. It was over. But man, this is awesome. I can't wait to I'm gonna, when I get off, it'll kind of process, and then once it's finished processing, I can add it to my Facebook. I'll set it up as a premiere so it'll go and people will get alerts. And yeah, I hope that Cal Poly and the NCAA just do the right thing by you. I mean, you're not a kid that did anything wrong. I understand if you were a kid that punched someone in the face at a bar or raped a girl or got caught doing drugs or, you don't deserve the extra. Kids make mistakes, but you have to pay for your mistakes, and rightfully so. But you didn't make a mistake. You followed orders from adults that are supposed to be guiding you in the right direction, and they failed you, and that's not fair.
No, I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time, helping me get my story out. And more though, I appreciate you putting Carolyn on. I know she doesn't get the credit she deserves. So I love just kind of getting her.
I appreciate your astuteness in this situation with Drew. Your ability to get right to what the real point is of this, and to not get involved in all the false bravado that goes with title that people have. I mean, I come from a family where my parents had very big titles at the national level in politics and in healthcare. And even though I could definitely say my dad was a little nefarious, I feel they're deceased now, but my mama was a public servant. And I do not ever remember any time thinking, hey mom, that might be a little bit of abuse of your very huge power. And when I was growing up, Jimmy Carter, my dad was a national politician when Jimmy Carter was president. And I read a book of his, and it said, over the schoolhouse on their plantation farm, it said, you enter to learn, you leave to serve. If you're a public servant and you're working with children and you're getting paid by the state, it comes from people's taxes, it is your job to do what's best in what you say. No two ways about it. You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a movie star, you want to live a different life, do not claim and do not use other people's tax dollars in this manner.
Yeah, it's really bad. And I don't like it, and I hope that it gets fixed.
We appreciate this. I mean, I appreciate it so much. I'd rather not talk about me at all. And
No.
Yes.
I'm glad. How great is it that I got to be at the GFC and I got to meet you? So
well, for us,
we're only as good as the people we get in our lives. So you're another good one that I found in my life, and hopefully I know for a long time, and hopefully I get to watch you, Drew, do some big things with your life, and whether they do the right thing or not, don't let this define who you are.
No, definitely not. Just gotta at the end of the day, keep pushing forward. So I really appreciate it again. Thank you so much.
Thank
For
you.
sure. My pleasure. Hey, keep eating Oreos.
This one's gonna come haunt you.
Yeah. See you guys.